Namaste everyone here at BookTube. Welcome to my channel Hamsavahini Vajra Astra. I'm Ahona and today I'm going to talk about the July Jane Austen challenge, which has been hosted by Katie from Books&Things and by Marissa from Blantantly Bookish. Now today I'm going to talk about challenge number 2, which is to read any of the novels or any of the works of Jane Austen, which is not one of her 6 main novels. So the work of Jane Austen which I've chosen for this challenge, The Prayers of Jane Austen. Now, as you can see, it's a very tiny little book. It's packed with 3 devotional prayers of Jane Austen. And today I'm going to talk about the spirituality of Jane Austen, her prayers, and how it reflects in her works. Now, before I begin, I must mention this is a vast subject, and although I'm not going to get into the details of all her novels, yet I'll probably discuss a few instances to reflect upon the spiritual roots which affected Jane's novels. Jane Austen grew up in a family of devotion and faith. Her father, George Austen, was a rector in the Church of England, and her 2 brothers also entered ministry. She had relatives who were also clergymen. Jane grew up in this environment of devotion and faith, yet she did not take it for granted and took it seriously on all accounts. She attended church services throughout her life and took great enjoyment in reading all the sermons. On her death, her nephew, James Edward Austen Leigh, described her as a good Christian and that piety ruled her life and supported her in her death. She was someone who was more concerned about living out her faith while and not talking about it. Now, this brings us to the aspect of morality, which we see in all her works. Morality characterized by manners, duty to society, and religious seriousness were a central theme in all of Jane Austen's work. Now, as we can see, this is wound up in everything that she has written about, and Jane was a woman of rare spiritual honesty and depth, and this is reflected in this little book of prayers. So, though her novels introduce us to her wit and wisdom, yet this set of prayers which she wrote helps us to understand that there is a deep and abiding faith that upholds this wit and wisdom which is present in all her novels. Now, for Jane to be a Christian was more about how you lead your life rather than how you talk about it or preach about it. And although all her novels were never intended to be a religious propaganda, yet we do find letters which she has shared with her relatives and her family, which do express the impatience for those who wear their religions up their sleeves. And so in her novels, we have morals and spiritual truths which are lived out by the characters, which not only inspire us but challenge us as well. So whereas we see in Sense and Sensibility there is an exquisite demonstration of our human struggle to develop a good moral character, which usually happens on the great battlefield which we call ordinary life. In Pride and Prejudice, a key turning point occurs when one of her main central characters comes to realize they have not been realistic or accurate about their notions of the world or about themselves. So the protagonist comes after many of the false steps to the realization that they have seriously misjudged another or treated them unfairly. When this realization happens, it is a moment of genuine spiritual awakening and encourages repentance for such harmful behavior, and this would be seen as reflected in the part of Elizabeth Bennet in Pride and Prejudice, when she comes to realize that she had been blind to the faults of her family and her superiority and empty pride within herself. And this is a moment of self-knowledge and serves to initiate positive personal growth. Now, Jane shows us that it takes great strength to live out a life of moral character in our world, and reveals this in the most subtle ways. Another character of this novel's, our favorite and most amusing Mr. Collins, seems to be the critical idea of treating the post of clergyman as just another job rather than a spiritual and religious duty. She saw the foolishness of the self-important clergyman who treated their vocation as though it was another of grand jobs, and her characterization of foolishness and narrow-minded vicars are more the result of her respect of her faith rather than disrespecting any of the vicars. Now, Jane Austen was an Anglican, practicing, believing Anglican Christian from the Church of England. And she wrote these 3 beautiful prayers in this book of the prayers which I just showed you. And apparently they were designed for her family worship time. Their style was based on the Book of Common Prayers, which she read regularly, and it mentions the need of personal self-examination and not judging others. Jane Austen was also involved in many good works as a good Christian is involved in, which is suing and visiting the poor, and this is also reflected in her novel Emma. So these are the few aspects which I learned from the prayers of Jane Austen, and which I just jotted down so that I do not ramble off in the middle, which is what I usually do. If you're more interested in knowing about the lives of Jane Austen, I would list 3 of the books in the description box, which you can check if you would like to know more about her life and how she lived her Christian life. And because outwardly it was an uneventful life, but as we can see, she was really devoted to her faith and the ways that she led her life, and this is all characterized by the morals and the values which are conducted by the characters in her novels. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will be back with another video of Jane Austen with another Jane Austen challenge, of course. So in case if you appreciate this video, do please click on the like button and subscribe to this channel, and I'll hope that I'll see you soon. Thanks for joining me today. Have a good day. Namaste.